Hello, wonderful person. Welcome to Stories Quick. Today I will explain an American sci-fi action movie titled In Time. The movie follows Will, played by Justin Timberlake, who is a poor man in a world where time is currency. He is falsely accused of murder, and he must go on the run, taking the daughter of an incredibly wealthy man with him. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. The movie starts with a voiceover describing the state of the world. In the distant future, people are genetically engineered to live for 25 years. After 25 years, a clock on the wrist is activated, giving each citizen one more year to live. Time becomes a currency. You can earn more by working, and you sell it for goods and services. The wealthy that live in New Greenwich are immortals, while the poor live in ghettos in different time zones. They are exploited and forced to live with only a few hours or days, doing anything to survive. Will, a 27-year-old man, lives in the poorest city of Dayton with his mother, Rachel. That day is Rachel's 50th birthday, and they promise to celebrate after work. Will goes to work, and on his way, he buys coffee with his time, but he sees the price has gone up. Continuing his walk, dead bodies are seen in the streets. Will works in a metal stamping plant, making shiny cassettes. However, after his shift, he realizes his time salary has been reduced. Will then meets up with his best friend, Boral, at a bar. As they talk, they see a man treating everyone to drinks and drawing attention to his arm, which lists him as having over 116 years. Will knows that the man did not belong to the ghetto and was likely to draw attention to himself. Will goes to meet the man. He advises him that the time snatchers will likely come for him. The man refuses to leave despite the warnings. Sure enough, the Minutemen, a criminal gang, shows up armed and ready to forcibly take the Henry's time. The gang leader, Fortis, is actually age 75. Boral and the rest of the bar scatter, but Will interferes and helps the man escape. The two flee from the Minutemen and eventually find an old building to hide in. The man introduces himself as Henry Hamilton. Will asks Henry why Henry flashed his time everywhere despite knowing the risks. Henry then tells Will more about the time currency system. It had been established as a means of population control after the advances made in anti-aging processes, but as people were still surviving. Inflation and lower wages were designed to keep the population in control. This currency system also meant that the rich could live much longer than normal and essentially become immortal, while the poor died. He tells Will that he is from New Greenwich, the country's capital. He claims there is enough time to go around, but the rich hoard it for themselves. However, Henry has become depressed and is tired of living for so long. Henry sees that Will has just 18 hours to live and offers to give him time, but Will refuses it. Unwilling to abandon the depressed man, Will offers to stay with the man until the morning. At dawn, Henry passes his time to a sleeping Will and leaves himself with a few minutes. Will wakes alone, with the 116 years of time and a message telling him not to waste it. Through a window, Will sees Henry seated on the edge of the bridge and realizes the man plans to commit suicide. He runs out to stop him, but just misses him as Henry's time runs out and he falls into the storm water channel. Will notices that street cameras are recording him and runs back home. Will meets Boral with his family and shows him his new time. To thank Boral for being his friend for so long, Will gives him a decade. Boral warns him that staying in Dayton with that much time was going to get him killed. Will wants to take his mom to New Greenwich. After Will leaves, Boral goes to drink with the time. Meanwhile, Rachel pays the debts she owes with her time and she is about to take a cab home, but she realizes the cab fare has increased from 1 hour to 2 hours. She has just an hour and 30 minutes left, and it's not enough for her fee. She persuades the driver, promising to return the remaining time, but the driver refuses. In a panic, she decides to run. Will is waiting at the bus stop and realizes something is wrong. He sprints as fast as he can toward Rachel. They meet somewhere in between, but it's too late. His mom dies in his arms. He mourns Rachel and vows to take his revenge on everyone who is hoarding time at New Greenwich. Later, Will calls a private stretch Lincoln limo to pick him up and take him to a richer time zone. He passes through foretold booths with progressive fares into a gleaming modern but sparsely populated city centre, New Greenwich. He has cleaned himself up to dine at a nice restaurant, and a young lady across the room takes notice. The waitress tells him to slow down to blend in with the rich, and suggests a casino nearby. Meanwhile, Henry's body is discovered by Raymond, one of the timekeepers. The timekeepers are a body of authority much like the police. He sees Henry's corpse and finds out Henry had decades a few hours before his death. Raymond notices the street cameras and examines the footage. When he expresses surprise at seeing Will's photo, his colleagues ask him if he knew the suspect and whether he had a criminal record. Raymond corrects them, telling them he did not know the current Will Salas, but he did know the senior Will Salas. Timekeepers are mobilized to locate Will Salas. They search for anyone with that much time in Dayton but find no one. That is because Will has left Dayton for New Greenwich. Will pays the border fees in New Greenwich, then runs into a hotel in the city. Sylvia, a girl from a rich home, sees him running. She figures he is from a poor town because the people in Greenwich have enough time that they do not run. Will enters the hotel and pays for a suite. He continues his life at the hotel the next day, and Sylvia sees him watching him. He tips his waiter and asks where the casino is. We then pick up at the casino where Will is dressed to kill in a tuxedo. He pays a year to enter. At the poker table, Will meets Philip Weiss, arguably the richest man in the world. In a high-stakes poker game, Will goes all in and comes out as victor, now with over 1,000 years. Philip is impressed, as is Sylvia, his beautiful but sheltered daughter. She is the girl from the restaurant. Philip then invites Will to his mansion for a party. Partially to see Sylvia again, Will agrees, knowing he needs to be prepared. Will purchases a Jaguar for the cost of 59 years and drives to the Weiss mansion on the coast. There, he meets Philip, his wife, and his mother-in-law, all three of whom look the same age due to their wealthy background. The women are followed by guards all the time, but Will still asks Sylvia for a dance at the party. As they dance, she tells him she knows he is poor, but says she enjoys the life of the poor as they can do anything they want. He takes her out and asks her to swim, but she refuses. Eventually, feeling oppressed by her father and his men, Sylvia agrees, and the two go skinny dipping in the ocean. Sylvia admits wishing that she could often do something wild and crazy. Philip had always restricted his family members though, and sure enough he soon comes looking for her. Sylvia and Will manage to dress and make themselves presentable again. They return to the party, and suddenly the timekeepers arrive and confront Will. He asks where Will got his time from, and Will denies stealing it. However, Raymond doesn't believe him and takes 1,000 years from Will, leaving him only 2 hours. Will asks why Raymond is interested in Henry's death instead of the death of the other poor people at Dayton, but Raymond replies that he sounds like his father, so he shouldn't die like his father. Raymond leaves, and Will fights off the other timekeepers, also taking Sylvia hostage and escaping out the mansion. Raymond commits himself to chasing them, even taking personal risks that other timekeepers avoided. After a car chase, Will manages to throw Raymond off their trail and escapes back to the country with Sylvia, who pleads to be let go. As soon as they return to Dayton, the car is wrecked in a trap set by the Minutemen and Fortis. While Will and Sylvia remain unconscious, the Minutemen discover that Will only has a little time left and was thus worth nothing. Sylvia, however, had about a decade, and so they take hers instead, leaving her seconds to minutes left. The men are forced to run before they could take all her time, and Sylvia panics because she has never been reduced to having so little time. Will gives her some time, then they set out to find Borrell, hoping that he could give them some time. To his grief, Borrell's wife tells Will that Borrell drank himself to death because of his excess time, leaving his wife and newborn alone. Raymond also begins searching for Will and Sylvia. Trying to get more time, they pawn off Sylvia's diamond earrings, but no, it isn't enough. Will then takes Sylvia to her father's time loan bank. He calls Philip and demands a 1,000-year ransom for Sylvia's return. Raymond listens to the call and warns Will not to follow his father's path. Will learns that his father's crime was not stealing time, but something much more serious. Philip refuses to release his time, but his wife begs him. Raymond then deduces where Will was hiding and assures Philip he would bring his daughter back safely. On the other hand, Will takes Sylvia home and gives her Rachel's clothes. They get to know each other well and talk. She asks if he hates her, but he replies that he doesn't hate her, and no one should be hated for their background. He also explains his father was an armed fighter with a trick to win time contests. He demonstrates that you let the other win at first, then they get overconfident and distracted just as the last few seconds run down. Then the arm can be flipped and the flow reversed. The next day the ransom is unpaid. Will says to Sylvia that it was likely because her father was prevented by the timekeepers, but Sylvia saw it as proof that her father didn't care about her. Nevertheless, Will decides to let her go and tells her to make a call to her family. Since they were in the ghetto after all, he also gives her a gun to protect herself. She kisses him and goes to the phone booth. She calls her father and he tells Raymond of their location. Raymond then appears and nearly shoots an unsuspecting Will. A panicked Sylvia shoots Raymond instead, and Will corners Raymond and attempts to take his time. Raymond, however, has very little, for it is timekeeper practice to carry only a little time to avoid being targets. Will graciously gives Raymond 5 hours of time. Sylvia asked why Will gave Raymond time, and he told her that timekeepers live day to day, and it may take Raymond hours before the other timekeepers find him. Will and Sylvia are now in the Cope's car. Sylvia realizes that using a police car was essentially asking for attention. They end up robbing another limo and passenger, a blonde woman dressed like a hooker. They learned that they had both been placed on a wanted poster with a reward of 10 years to anyone who could bring about their arrest. Philip studies a large map of the world with colored lights and numbers. He assures his business partners that his daughter would not crash the current economic system. An injured Raymond manages to escape the ghetto, verbally harassed the whole time, and meets with Philip. Philip attempts to bribe Raymond into rescuing his daughter, but Raymond refuses and tells him that due to Sylvia's actions, an arrest warrant will be placed for her. If Philip interfered and tried to save his daughter, Raymond will see him arrested as well. Will teaches Sylvia how to shoot a gun, and Sylvia buys the idea of robbing her father's bank. Later, Will and Sylvia drive an armored car through a Weiss bank window and scoop up many time capsules. They invite the onlookers to grab what they can also. He takes some of the capsules to borrow his wife and gives the homeless on the street some time. Philip calls Raymond and asks him to get back the time. Raymond comments that Will doesn't know he is killing the people he wants to help. A man is killed for not wanting to leave his time. Philip watches the news to see his daughter has robbed his banks about 5 times in 1 week. He complains to his wife about giving Sylvia everything she ever wants. His wife says he instead chokes Sylvia. Raymond gets to know Will's hideout. He combs the hotel for him, and Will and Sylvia run out mid of their sexual activities. They fight their way to the bus. The driver sees they are wanted, so they bribe the driver with more time, enter the bus, and run from Raymond. Fortis sees the poster that offers to give anyone who finds Will about 10 years. Will and Sylvia run into a hotel. They rent all the rooms in the hotel, and a man sees them going inside. Fortis lays an ambush for several men. He asks if anyone who knows the location of Will. Else, he will kill everyone. After killing one man, the man who saw Will in the hotel confessed. Fortis arrives and explains it is not just the rich and the timekeepers oppressing the normal citizens. The Minutemen are being allowed to do so as long as they did not start preying on the rich as well. Fortis challenges Will to an armed fight to the death. As the two men lock arms together, Will's time runs down fast. Will uses his trick to reverse the flow, then manages to pull a gun from his boot, kills the henchman and times out Fortis. They escape. Raymond gets to the hotel and sees Fortis and his men's bodies. Raymond orders that Will must be found. Will and Sylvia see many people in front of the time bank. They feel they can't break the system. Will asks that they give up, and he says they can't fight the system unless they get about 1 million years. Sylvia knows where they could find that time. Sylvia returns home, pretending to turn herself in, distracting her father and his multiple guards, so that Will could sneak up on him. Under gunpoint, they take Philip to his office and open a large vault, where they find a single cassette with 1 million years. Philip tries to say it is always in an individual's interest to live forever even at the cost of another's, but the two runaways are unconvinced. After locking Philip in the office, the two again return to Dayton. While keeping the timekeepers distracted, they pass the 1 million cassette to Maya, the little girl. Raymond pursues Will and Sylvia to a remote area running toward Livingstone, the next town over, just as they all begin to run out of time. Will sees that Ray is a Dayton homeboy, an honest cop just doing his job, but the timekeeper has forgot to get his per diem and dies in front of them as he times out. With only seconds to spare, Will notices the police car in the distance, runs, and manages to transfer the timekeeper's time from the center console device to himself. He runs back to Sylvia and just manages to transfer some time, saving her life. The two of them only have enough for a day. It is shown in the news that everyone at Dayton has stopped working due to excess time, and they are all crossing the borders to New Greenwich. At the timekeeper's office, Raymond's assistant tasks all the timekeepers to go home, ending the movie with 100 years bounty on them, pulling up in front of a large institution. Will and Sylvia draw their guns to make their biggest heist. Thank you for watching the recap. Please subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post the next recap. See you next time.